What's going on, guys? I just ordered a new microphone, and I just ordered a new microphone stand here. And I was gonna wait to make this video, but because it's on the topic of safety, I said, you know what, we need to just address it now because uh, any topics on the topic of safety, it's better to not wait on them. It's better to just address them because you never know what'll happen. So, I just recently got a question. Asking, more of a story. Someone saying they were warming up for jujitsu slash wrestling. And you know what happens. Injuries, they lurk around the corner. Apparently, he threw his back out starting a little too soon. And I just want to talk about that really quickly because when you throw your back out, listen, backs are tricky, okay? When you throw your backs out, it can just kind of catch you by surprise. One time I was literally using a massage gun on my leg and I was sitting and I was leaning as I was massaging my hip. I relaxed just right and I felt my spine go bloop like this, and it was a howling pain. I could barely breathe. So I just want to address this. Backs are very tricky. They can pretty much get thrown out easily when you're least expecting it. If you're not braced properly, if you're slouching like I am now, right? I'm not great at keeping good posture. I should be more. But it can happen easily. Injuries can really sneak up on you. So when I got this question, hey, how do you like to warm up? How do you like to warm up properly to ensure you're not going to get injured? Okay, this is very important. Now, the old school way of kind of warming up, let me see if I can even pull this up here. I don't know if you guys know who this is. Cheer. I don't know how to spell his name. Artow. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Okay, check this out. So a few years ago, I got to, why does my screen do this all the time? A few years ago, I got to go to a little wrestling style camp with this guy over here. His name is Ken Chertow. Okay, see if I can pull this up. See if my display works here. Ken Chertow, right here. This guy right here. So gold medal camp. He's an Olympian. I think he was an Olympian in freestyle. I don't know exactly what it was, but anyways, he did a local camp in my town, in my hometown. It was this guy right here. Boom. NCAA All-American, dedicated, full potential. He went to the Olympics, though. He was in the Olympics. More about Ken. Olympian, Seoul Olympics. A lot of achievements. A lot of coaching achievements as well. Very good coach. I learned a lot of stuff at this camp. But the one thing is, he had us warm up in an interesting way. A way that I don't necessarily like to do. Like, we were doing these wrestling warm-ups, and I'm sure it's just kind of old school sports science warm-ups, and man, oh man, my knee freaking popped. I was just chilling on the mat, like stretching and like a hurdler stretch. Granted, I probably wasn't in the best shape of my life, right? So it's maybe nothing to do with this style of warm-up at all. That's very true. It's just a fluke thing, but my knee, like my knee, same thing. Like my patella like slipped or something, and then my knee was swollen and it swelled up. I had a great time at the camp. I learned a ton of stuff from Ken. That's not what I'm saying. But injuries can happen just kind of randomly and fluke-like. So, anyways, I want to get into something that I've learned since then. I was a white belt during that camp. Okay, I was white belt, maybe barely a blue belt, but probably a white belt. And I was learning a little bit of wrestling, but then right after I got my blue belt, I started training at TriStar a little bit, and up here in Montreal, close to where I live. And I spent probably about a year going up there. And every class, they had us warm up the same way. They, meaning like Faraz and Neil, the guys who are running the classes up there. They had us warm up with technique. And this is kind of like a wrestling style thing from what I've heard, The format and formula is 2 and 2. And what that means is person A does 2 techniques to person B, and then person B does 2 techniques back to person A, and they go back and forth like this in drilling format. Okay, and they're not going live, they're just kind of drilling, trying out their techniques, flowing with it. Sometimes they're to the finish, sometimes they're just the entry. There's some debate on that, if you should always drill it to the finish or not. What are you really teaching yourself if you don't? That's a whole nother can of worms. But this quickly became my favorite way to warm up. And I'll kind of explain to you why, some of the science behind it. So Faraz is a big fact-based guy, which I think is a really important thing. And I really, everything he says, I kind of, in regards to sports, I really kind of take that into consideration, because he's saying, if you have an athlete who drills their moves and warms up with technique, one, you're going to get limbered up for that specific sport. Okay. You wouldn't go shoot basketball to like warm up for shooting double legs. Like, it just doesn't make sense like that. You would want to probably start warming up with your entries and stuff for wrestling to warm up for wrestling, if that's what you're doing. If you're warming up for jiu-jitsu, you might want to start out doing some sweeps or pulling guard or doing these different things. And you're gradually getting into it. You're warming your body up for it. Okay. Second thing is, while you're warming up, you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Not only are you getting physically warm and getting the heart pumping and blood going and sweating, hopefully, a little bit, but you're also practicing your sports. You're practicing your skills. So if by default you warm up and you do, just for the sake of this, you do 100 given techniques, right? Or 100 reps of a given technique, just by happenstance, then you're going to be a lot more familiar with that technique as well. So not only have you warmed up safely, but you're also going to be more familiar with your sport. Okay. Now this brings to a question. It's like, well, what if you're a beginner in the sport and you don't know any techniques? Well, that's another interesting thing, is you just practice the one technique over and over again until you accumulate more techniques through the classes. So for example, if I go to my first jiu-jitsu class and I don't know a single thing, or perhaps, my partner shows me arm drag, boom, and I just work on arm drag the entire time. Or if I don't know a single thing at all, then, you can kind of ask your partner. This is another cool thing with the 2-on-2 format, is it promotes a little miniature culture and a little miniature moment of teaching. Okay, so if I'm going with someone who doesn't know anything, one, we're starting to build a little bit of a relationship, because they'll probably ask me, oh, how do you do this? Or what is this? What is this? And it gives me a moment or an opportunity to, explain the techniques that I'm doing. And if you listen to anyone who's kind of done any kind of instructing, they'll say, you should be able to teach these techniques, right? Or teaching something makes you better at it. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. I think Danaher has a quote where, I'm going to paraphrase this. He's saying, not only are all my students good at the sport themselves, but they're also good at teaching it. And why does he put an emphasis on that? Because they need to be good at teaching it. That's how they know the knowledge the best. Even, Richard Feynman said, he's a famous teacher, right? He's a physicist, but he's a famous teacher. And he was so into explaining things simply, just interacting with that knowledge in a certain way. So another reason why 2-on-2s are very cool is because it's a little miniature environment where you can have a teaching and learning moment, both from one student, who's learning from another student, but also a student who's teaching another student. That's a huge opportunity, which most students don't get a chance to do that in the normal class. That's personally why I like that better. Also, kind of the opposite of how we were warming up in the concerto clinic or camp, it was a touch more static. And I think over time, you've kind of realized, or at least sports science has realized, that this dynamic, or like kind of, what is it, like calisthenic warm-up or something, I don't know, just like more of a dynamic, less of a static one, is actually better. It's not so sustained, especially when you're cold. I've heard, I think you can do static warm-ups after, like on your cool down. I think that's actually good for your muscles. You might want to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's where those belong. But at least for warming up, I like warming up with the technique, because you're going to get better. You've got a special environment where you can teach and learn from other people. And you also have an eased into your sport. You're literally getting the muscles warmed up, the same muscles you're warming up, doing these techniques nice and slowly and cooperating back and forth, is the same. Those are the same muscles you're going to use when you actually start going live and actually start doing your sport. Okay, so that's why I like to do it. Once again, there's no real right or wrong way. Like Ken Chertow, he's an Olympian. I am not an Olympian, right? So I'm not saying what he did, how he warms up in his camps is bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that's just something I noticed versus like this 2-on-2 Frost style way versus those static stretches we were doing in that camp, and how it actually had an injury on me. So hopefully I answered your question. go out there, warm up properly, and listen, you're not warm until you're sweating. Okay, so sweat a little bit. And 2-on-2 doesn't need to just be on the feet. Takedown format. We're doing jiu-jitsu, at least I am in my case. So 2-on-2 can be from any position. It can be from guard. It can be from guard passing. It can be just sweeps. It can be submissions off your back. It could be, row drags and like front headlock stuff and takedowns. It can be anything you want to. Leg locks, 2-on-2s, but it's this essence of cooperation, this environment of teaching and instructing, and also you're getting better at your sport and you're warming up your sport-specific muscles, which, just a static stretch alone is not going to do. So go ahead, give this a try. Hopefully this helped out, and it's a safety issue, so really take it seriously. Really consider, how you warm up. Awesome. See you next time.